Okay, it's another unscripted twister at holdiness. All right. Well, last month I escaped, or I should say, I missed the first anniversary of the Flame. I had hoped to make it, but two things stopped me. One, I was expanding my empire. We opened a new school, so I was kind of busy. And the second thing was just content. Tonight, content. Tonight is actually my first anniversary of the Flame. It was 1 year ago when I first came here and stood behind this mic and told the story here. And since that time, Charles has very kindly invited me back a couple of times. Now, we all know that familiarity breeds contempt. We know that because we've heard it like a million, a trillion times. And I feared your contempt. I have a very, very well-developed sense of fear. It has prevented me really from doing any kind of dangerous stuff, any kind of red bullshit or anything like that. I'm also happy that I was born in a time when I wasn't required to attend any wars in the name of patriotism or anything like that. So very lucky to get out of that. Basically, unlike Steve McQueen, I'm just not the heroic type. So it's a bit surprising that I even have a story to tell on this topic. Someone just says, please, go away. Okay. But the sense of fear, I fear, has not saved me from the youthful disavowal of risk. That's a problem which I'd like to say I've grown out of, but I haven't. It still dogs me to this day, and I'm 51 now, just turned last week. So once again tonight, in a stunning display of risk disavowal, I'm going to inflict on you a few true stories, which, had they worked out a bit differently, would have dramatically and irreversibly changed my story. I realize that they may be of little interest to anyone except myself, but I hope in the end that they will serve to illustrate a few universal truths. My first bicycle I got at the age of about 5 years old. Like most of the stuff I owned as a child, it was hand-me-down from my big brother. I think he got a chopper. The bicycle was too big for me, so the only way I could get onto it was climb up on the garden wall, throw my leg over the saddle, and wobble off up the road until I'd run out of steam and then fall off because I had no other way to get off. But oddly enough, I was inordinately proud of my cycling prowess, and I still am. So one day when a strange man said to me, "Hey, do you want to have a race?" I thought, why not? Yeah. Okay, let's go. So we started from my mum's house, down the hill to the beach, and as I expected, I kicked his ass. He came up behind me a bit later, and he said, "I wasn't quite ready at the start. Do you want to have another race along the beach road to the woods?" I said, well, dinner's about to be served, and my mum's going to be really annoyed if I'm late and it gets cold. And tonight it's cauliflower and cheese, which is a personal favorite of mine. And Charles, just on that, I noticed here you say, if you have any ideas or suggestions on ways we can improve, please let us know. And I want to give that a try. It's really good. Especially with potatoes. So anyway, he persuaded me to race again. The pride got the better of hunger and fear of my mother. So we raced along the beach, and guess what? I won again. Yeah. About 2 or 3 minutes, well, not that long, but a while later, he caught up with me. He was panting and gasping. He said, "Hey, do you want to take a walk in the woods to cool down?" Well, I should say at this point that I wasn't entirely taken in by him, because like all little kids, I had been warned not to consort with weirdos. So he challenged me to a little race up to the top of a hill in the wood. So off we went, and luckily for me, we weren't too far from the road when his urges got the better of him. He dropped his pants, he got out his cock and made a grab for me. I bolted, ran as fast as I could, got back to my giant bike, clambered on, and wobbled off up the road. He was behind me shouting, "I know where you live. Don't tell anyone about this or I'll come to your house and kill you." And so I got back home. I was all a tremble. I went in. My mom gave me a scolding for being late for my cauliflower, but I couldn't eat it anyway because I was too shocked. And I couldn't tell her because I really believed that guy was going to come to my house and kill me. And for months and maybe even years after that, I was always worried about this personal bogeyman of mine turning up. But anyway, he never did. And time went by, and I want to move on now to a second story, a different time and a different place. First, a little question. Has anybody ever noticed here in Japan how people leave their suitcase or something sitting around if it's heavy, go off to a coffee shop, have a coffee, come back half an hour later, pick it up and go about their business? Well, I noticed it because back in the 1970s and 80s in Northern Ireland, if you had done that, you would very, very likely have been arrested. Your baggage would have been blown up as a suspect device. You'd have got a day in court and an extremely heavy fine. Everybody, from the earliest age, it was impressed on us all, you do not leave any box, parcel, bag, package, or anything unattended. Unattended luggage was the cardinal sin. So perhaps you can all imagine my surprise when one day on the train, in the carriage, under the seat, my friends and I usually sat on our way home from school. We found a bag. We were aghast. But we sat down anyway on top of it and discussed what to do about it. And we thought, well, it could just be some kid forgot his school satchel or something, and there's nothing in it but school books. But after a bit of discussion, we decided we'd better report it to the authorities. So I went down the train and I found the conductor. He was a pompous little official. "Where is it?" I said, "Oh, it's up this way." He said, "Where?" I said, "Under the seat, near the window." He said, "Oh, really?" So he opened it. It's a mistake. And we looked inside, and inside there was a gasoline can with a couple of wires sticking out of it. So we thought, oh, that was enough of a hint to let us know that the train on which we were traveling was in fact a commercial target. So it stopped. Everybody got off. As soon as I disembarked, I was taken into custody by the Royal Ulster Constabulary, a suspect IRA bomber. But after brief questioning, they discovered that I was a Protestant and therefore not guilty. I was sent back down to the station, and that's how, to tell the bomb disposal people about what I'd seen, and that's how I came to be sitting inside of a Saracen armoured car when the train blew up right in front of us. In the blink of an eye, that train was turned into an inferno, a fireball, the entire train. Anybody who'd been on it would not have needed a crematorium. It was terrible. I think now, if that happened in these days, Northern Ireland Rail would probably give you a free ticket or something by way of reward. But in those days, again, familiarity had bred contempt, and I didn't get anything. They thought getting away with your life was reward enough. So, with a life still to live, I decided to go traveling. And me and Tony Wheeler both think that Thailand is a great place to travel in. And back in 1985, or 86, I'm not sure which. Does it matter? Not really. Okay, anyway, it's one of them. I think it was the Visit Thailand year. Anyway, 1985, Thailand was still kind of off the beaten track, so it was a nice place to go. And I was up in Chiang Mai, and I hired an old one-gear bike because that's all they had. And I decided to cycle across the hills to the Burmese border. And on the map, that looked like a pretty good idea. But in reality, it turned out to be one of the hardest physical challenges that I've ever undertaken. 3 days later, I arrived in a small village called Ban Kunyuan. I got off the bike and fell on the ground. My legs had just turned into jelly. Riding that old clunker over those hills in that heat, I think would have taxed even a doped up Lance Armstrong. I couldn't really walk for a while, so I kind of got myself to the only hotel, checked in, and lay down for 2 days, and then I got up, recovered, and went out to explore. And I discovered, to my surprise, that there were other foreigners living in that far-flung place. There was a purple-haired mathematics professor, quite famous in the world of statistics, who drove a white Mercedes covered in Rolex watches and gold. He's from Suriname. And there was a big, muscly guy, a bodybuilder from Chicago, Illinois, called Dick. And there was, I call him Dirty Dick. And then there was an older, retired French military officer with the most delicate, beautiful flower of a 19-year-old Burmese girl as his wife. And it was something like walking straight into the pages of a Graham Greene novel. So I decided, hey, I'll stay here for a while, and I did. I stayed for a month. The place, I discovered quite a lot about that place. It was, among other things, a center of teak smuggling, teak wood, and opium production. There were a lot of fields of poppies around the place. And I spent my days out with the camera taking pictures of them. So I went every night to one restaurant. I think there only was the one restaurant, and the police used to be there every night. They sat around in a group at one table, being rude to everyone. They were generally drunk and disorderly. And the local hill tribe people would come in their picturesque uniforms and deliver a little gift and then make themselves scarce again. And the police were definitely to be avoided. And one night, while I was slurping my noodles, I didn't slurp my noodles, and I hadn't been to Japan yet, but I was eating my noodles, and they called me over to their table. Well, I didn't want to go, of course, but it wasn't the kind of invitation that one was really at liberty to turn down. So I went over and sat down, and they plied me with Mekong whiskey and Chang beer. I sat there, nobody really spoke English, and I drank a bit and waited a bit. And when I figured out, well, it's about time, I've been here long enough, I can get up and go without causing offense, I got up to go. Immediately, one older, slovenly looking policeman jumped up and he said, "Yo, fella, stop. You'll pay everything." I said, "What?" "Well, brave I am not, but I'm frugal." I said to them, "Hey, you invited me." So he pulled out his gun, pointed it at my face. I thought, oh shit, as you do in these occasions. He slammed the gun down on the table, looked at me and said, "Alan, you'll pay everything." But at this point, I was saved. Another policeman, maybe a more senior one, he picked up the gun and said, "Alan, you'll go." And I went. So I got back to the hotel, and next morning I was out walking up the street, and I was met by the local forestry commissioner, and he did speak a little bit of English. He said, "Hey, we think you are a detective." So my first thought was, oh, Sherlock Holmes. And then almost immediately that was replaced, oh, DEA. They thought that I was a Drug Enforcement Administration spy who was in there. I had no reason to be there. I was out walking around taking pictures of poppy fields. So I went back to the hotel, packed my stuff up, loaded my bike and my gear on the bus, and left the band for good. Now, are there any morals to be taken from these stories? Well, I think there are. One, never go into the woods with perverts. Two, don't sit on incendiary devices. And three, don't drink with bad cops in foreign countries. And maybe most important, know your limits, and let them limit you. Thank you. Good night.